Hello and welcome my partners in crime, welcome back to Murder Analysed. Now today's case has got a trigger warning out against it because it is a case of an infant, of a young baby, 20-month-old baby. It talks about neglect of this child and also the death of this child in this case. If this case is not for you, there's plenty more on Murder Analysed for you to have a look at. So that's fine, and I'll see you on the next one. So this case is about this young girl, right? This Verphy Kudi. Now, she was 19 at the age, 19 years of old when she was convicted of this crime, and this crime was taking place in December 2019, and this is from Brighton, this case in the UK. So now I want to start with this case because there's some issues about this case right from the beginning, right? In this case, there's so much, and I'll highlight them as I go along. I want to talk to you about what happened on this day. So this girl, this teen mum, walked out on her daughter, right, for 6 days to celebrate her 18th birthday. 6 days. She left this child on her own. Now it was, or it is assumed, I think, and it has been suggested that this Verphy lived in a mother and baby sort of unit. This is what this flat was. Now this would have been for vulnerable mothers. Now it's very difficult to find out anything really, to tell you the truth. There's sort of things, but I think this is where she lived. Now if that's the case, right, you've left your child for 6 days. But the issue is here is not her just doing that. The issue is that it has been suggested that stated that she had left her child on 11 or 12 times prior to that. So she'd left this child alone, this 20-month-old baby alone, between 11 and 12 times before the 5th of December 2019, when she decided to leave her child, go and party, celebrate her 18th birthday for 6 days, not organising a babysitter, not organising anyone, not telling anybody that she'd left this child alone. This child was also already ill with influenza flu. And then, really, when you think what happened to this child in them 6 days, is that because she was already unwell, she didn't cry a lot anyway, because I think she'd already known in them 20 months of her life that this woman wasn't going to show her any attention even if she did. This child would have been in such distress because she was unwell with the flu. That means her high temperatures and everything else that she would have had. She would have had no fluids over 6 days. This baby was dying while this girl was out partying. Right? She was out partying, celebrating, and she moved, I think, she went from Brighton to Coventry, it's about 150 miles, then from Coventry to London to meet a boyfriend, then on, 6 days. 6 days. Partying. Why this child, this Asiah, this child is dying in her property. In a property that it's alleged was a mother and child flat given to her by social services. Don't forget, this child was 20 months old. This girl was 18 in 5th December. She was 18 at the time this child died. So she had this child quite young. Everyone's going to say, what about her family? It was stated also by her family that she was estranged from her family. She had run off at the age of about 14. Now listen, this happens a lot, right? It does in England. It happens a lot. These kids won't do as they're told, and it's obviously by this character of this girl that she didn't have any interest in authority at all, any care in anybody else. And so it was easier for her to leave home at 14, run around the streets and do what she's got to do. Nothing to do with her parents. Her parents and her sister were estranged from her and the child because of this Verphy's choice, not theirs, hers. She wanted to run her own life, be her own, do her own thing, leave this child unattended. So that was her choice, to run off and have nothing to do with this family after that. It's just shocking really when you think about it, of how her family must feel at knowing that this child was left alone for 6 days in a flat, in the dark, no water, no food, already unwell from influenza flu and dying. It's a shocking thing, isn't it, for anyone, for any parent, to think that their child would be capable of doing something like that to their own child. It's shocking, really, but that is what happened here. That's exactly what happened. This was a party girl who thought that was all right to do that. Now, there's issues because, as I said, she had done this between 11 and 12 times before. Not left for 6 days, but definitely left this child unattended. So she was under social services. She was in a mother and baby unit, like flat, which would have been local authority housing, for where you are, have people that check on you and stuff like that. A lot of these places have live-in staff, a lot don't. It depends on the area, it depends on the funding from the local authority, but you would think, wouldn't you, that for 6 days they said they assumed that she had took the child with her. Well, you think if she's done it 11 or 12 times before, wouldn't you have checked that? That's my first point, right? Wouldn't you have checked? Even think, then you have to think, if you were leaving your child at that point when you were 17 and you're in a mother and baby unit because you're a vulnerable parent, you need to have parenting skills in this, but you've done this 11 or 12 times, why didn't they remove the child? Really? Then? What was her excuses? Once, oh, didn't really realise. Twice, 11 or 12 times? You know, it brings, doesn't it, really, this case again, our services for these children, or children's services, you know, it brings them to the forefront, really. They're not responsible for the actual death of the child, but they are responsible because they had a duty of care to that child and to her, really, the minute they put her, if it's true, right, this alleged that she was in there, they have a responsibility because she was a vulnerable parent. And how do we know if it wasn't alleged, you know, if it wasn't said by these people 11 or 12 times that she'd already done this previously? Someone, listen, this is another child, isn't it, that's fallen through the net really here, isn't it, really? But what in your right mind, right, and you're going to hate the sentence when I tell you it, you're going to hate it, in anyone's right mind, why would you think, even at 18, right, that a baby of 20-month-old trapped in a cot that's got no food or drink, that's also unwell, and you're not giving it medication to keep the temperature down and all this, who in their right mind would think that this child wouldn't be seriously ill or die within this time period that you've left it and gone out and partied? Do you see what I mean? You know, listen, I'm going to tell you now, this woman got 9 years, this girl, this Verphy, 9 years for manslaughter, right? And you'll see her on the CC footage coming in. Now, she got 9 years, and when she was first arrested, or when this first happened, right, on this day, when she's come back off her 6th day, you know, running around, party, you know, happy time of her life, being 18, how happy am I, I'm 18, I've just left my kids, you know, I'm off, I'm partying. So when she come back, CCTV shows her coming in. She goes upstairs for about 3 hours. She's seen coming down with rubbish and different things like that. But then she calls the ambulance 3 hours after she's got in. So you can imagine how these ambulance drivers now are feeling. They've come into this property unaware that this girl has left her child for 6 days. They believe that this child has got influenza flu, she's unwell, and really they're now fighting at this point to save this child's life, and she was pronounced dead then at the hospital after that. But this girl still lied, so she was free to go off and do her life, because they actually thought at first that this child had just died. It wasn't until a little bit later on, when the CCTV footage and stuff showed that she had lied, because she told the police she had been there all the time and this child had just died. The CCTV footage showed a different story. It showed that she hadn't been in that property for for them 6 days at all. And when she had come back to that property, from the time of ringing the ambulance to when she got in was 3 hours difference. So she knew what she'd done as wrong, because she lied. She tried to get herself out of it. She tried to clean up the flat. She tried to do things to stop herself being prosecuted for murder of this child. Right? So they give her manslaughter. They gave her manslaughter because for having a murder charge, right? It's a lot for a murder charge. You have to have the intent to kill, right? To harm, to kill, right? That's what you have to have. So and the act, I suppose, was her. She had one part of that, because the act was then leaving a child for that long. But she didn't. Did she have the mindset? What was in her mind at that point when she left that property? Did she think this child's going to be dead when I return? She may have hoped it, but she didn't. We don't know, right? Because we're not bloody mind readers. This is the whole thing when you are trying to sentence someone or charge someone with murder. It can't be done all the time, because they'd have lost the case. So they charged her with manslaughter. Now, manslaughter alone holds quite a large sentence. More than 9 years he could have given her. I don't know why he didn't. I don't know why he didn't, because it was quite clear by what she's saying and her actions, right, that she intentionally tried to cover up this crime. She had lied about this crime. And it is a crime, right? You've starved your child to death. It was neglect and starvation that killed this child. So you think, okay, so they're going to do her for manslaughter. So that's what they did. They charged her with manslaughter over this, and she was in the dock and she was crying, this, that and the other. Oh, I'm sorry. But I don't think she was. I just don't think she was. And I think this was a YMCA, actually, YMCA flat. So I don't know if it is manned all the time or if it's just managed. They just pop in now and again, these flats. But it's a really shocking case, this one, when you think that this woman has done this to this child. And really, yeah, was she crying in court for her own, I don't know, save herself, feel bad, feel guilty? Listen, this Verphy, I think it was, she had put in wanted to do some modelling. I think it's a pretty little thing. She was online, she had an online thing, she just wanted to be a model. And you see her posing, you'll see some photos of her posing with a baby. A baby isn't just there, like a bloody handbag or whatever. She had a choice with this child, right? Not to do this. She had a choice to get rid of it. It's up to her. She had a choice to have it adopted, to foster it out. There's plenty of people out there that are desperate need and been waiting all their life to have a child and can't have one. But you have someone like this that has a healthy baby up until this point. This baby was healthy, happy baby. You're in a place where they should be monitored, this sort of thing. And she chose to just discard it, just think, oh well, this baby was never a priority to her at all. Well, listen, her career, or any career that she may have had with any modelling agency, is over. The minute you've done a crime like this, you can forget yourself being on social media or being a model. These people are going to stay as far away from this girl as they possibly can, and so they should. But I think with the 9-year sentence, I don't know, I think I just don't think it's enough. The severity of this crime was so high, really so bad, that she should have, I think she could have got 12, maybe 17 years. I think she needs to. There are ways that people can. I know there's been a lot of stuff online about talking about this case and to get more, you know, time for her. And that is to really, you need to go to your own MPs and stuff and push and that for have this sentence, you know, increased, because they can do that. I wouldn't say at the minute, because with this new government and stuff coming in, we'll have to wait. But, you know, really talk to someone. You can do, you know, signatures, you can do all these sort of things that and put pressure on people to up this case or this sentence of this girl, because I think she deserves more than 9 years. Listen, this girl might do about 4.5 years. She'd then take off time served or whatever she'd done before that. You're looking at about 4.5 years. And we do know, I suppose, it's quite obvious, isn't it, what's going to happen to this girl if she ever gets pregnant again. Ever, she would immediately lose that baby at birth. That baby would be taken off her at birth, because she is incompetent and she isn't capable of having a child or caring for a child. So that will automatically happen now to her. I think for her family, I do feel for her family, because again, as I said, she was estranged from her family, and it must be a terrible thing for them to have, you know, what a shock for anyone really to hear this sort of thing about one of your family members could do to an innocent child. It's really shocking. Now, this, her poor daughter, this 20-month-old little girl. People have said, you know, I've been talking about this case with some people because it's so shocking, really. A lot of people can't believe it. A lot of people have already heard about it, and there's a few YouTubers that have done it, and good for them to put out this awareness of this case. And I think with someone like her, I think when you have a child, a 20-month-old, who already understands that, you know, you're ignored, you know, you can cry all you want, you ain't getting anything, they just stop in the end. I think this child would have been too weak, and I think the pathologist has said this as well. They would have been too weak. She would have been too weak to have even cried at certain points towards the end of it, because her distress would have been so much. As I said, she had the flu, so her temperature, and really, you know, she would have had chills, and her body would have been shaken. There'd have been a lot happening with a temperature, high temperature like that, and no fluids put in the body for them amount of days, and also the cold and stuff. This girl, 20-month-old, wouldn't have had a nice death, right? This would have been terrible for this baby. Let's be honest, it would have been terrible. It's a terrible way to die. I mean, if you've ever had the flu yourself, to think that how you feel and you're medicated up and you've got people bringing you in stuff. This child really had to go through that for 6 days on her own, knowing that no one had come if she cried, because no one ever did before. Now that's actually what was said in court. She knew not to cry because no one was coming. It's such a bloody sad case, this one, isn't it? You think, what has this girl done? How could she live with herself, really? You know, to me, it's so shocking. So anyway, this girl, she's, you know, I think it was the Royal Alexandra Children's Hospital anyway that this child died in, and she was pronounced dead on the 11th of December 2019 at the age of 20 months old. Shocking, and this was really by the hands, or the non-hands, of her mother. So Asiah was the child and therapy with the mother, and the family said that following the sentence, the family were in the midst of an unbearable tragedy, which they were, of course they were. Not only are they coming to terms with what's happened to them, but also still grieving for their beloved granddaughter. Listen, I've got 4 grandchildren, and I know a lot of my members and my partners in crimes and stuff, we've all got children. These cases are so, you know, hard for us to believe. This case is even harder for me to believe because of the circumstances around it. You know, she didn't just have a flat somewhere, she had a flat in the YMCA flat for mothers who are vulnerable, or parents that are vulnerable, to be taught how to be a mother. You've left a child 11 or 12 times before this. It's been reported, but she still has a child. The failings of our system is getting worse and worse and worse. Every case I do, it just gets worse and worse, because nothing is ever straightforward, is it? Listen, the only one responsible for this child's death was this Verphy. That's the only one, right? She done that. She chose to go out and party hard for 6 days without giving a shit about her child's life. She chose that. She chose to do that. you can ask for help, right? She could have asked for help. She could have, but she didn't, because she thought it was all right. Her priority was never this child. Never. It was quite obvious, wasn't it? Right from the beginning. This child was just an accessory when she wanted to be photographed on Instagram or wherever, matching outfits. What a load of bullshit this is, really, when you really think about it. Because children are not there as an accessory to these young girls. They're there because they are children. And if you can't look after them, then have the bloody decency to give them up to people that can care for them. Because it's getting really tiring, isn't it? Having to do these cases and listening to the failings of different services and these young kids coming up with excuses. But it was my birthday, I wanted to party. No one gives a shit about her birthday and when she was going to party. She could have done that. She could have given up that child. She could have rung them up and said, I don't want to do this no more. I don't want to be a mum. I've had enough. I can't do it. Lots of girls do it, and good on them for doing it. To say, do you know what? I've had enough. I can't do it. Rather than leaving your child to die in that way. The bravery of these girls that give up their children because they can't do it, right? And they are brave to do that because they have a lot really to get over once they give that child up and walk away. But they do it. There's a lot of teenagers and a lot of women, old and young, that do that, and good for them for doing that, admitting that they are incapable of looking after a child. You can't give that child everything, so you give it up. Good for them for doing that. But then on the other hand, you have people like this one, this Verphy, that thought, I don't care. I'm not going to give my child up. I'm not going to give my child the best life. I'm not going to give my child good health care, safe, safety. I'm going to go and party. And sod her, really. So if 9 years enough for this Verphy? No. Absolutely no way. She had every opportunity to do the right thing by this child. Every opportunity. In this country, in the UK, there's every opportunity for you to get the help that you need. She chose not to. So she is guilty, and far more guilty, really, I think, than what she likes to admit in this case. Far more guilty. And I don't think she's even got the empathy there. I don't believe the tears were for her. She never admitted this crime. She lied, remember, at the beginning, she lied about it. I hadn't left the house in 6 days, I didn't do this, didn't do that. She cleaned the house up, she tidied it up first before she put the rubbish out and went back in to call the ambulance for her child that was dying. That's what she did. And then you give her 9 years. I'll tell you, this country. So this staff have said that, this Verphy misled them into believing that the little Asiah was with her and Aisha was with her. And, but come on. You're misled by someone that's already done it 11 times before, so it's absolutely bullshit. They're all trying to save themselves, of course they are. But listen, it still comes down to the girl was 18-year-old and she'd done this crime herself, right? Okay, they wasn't on her constantly, which they should have been, right? But she didn't have to do this. She didn't have to leave that child alone at all. She just didn't. But she did. I tell you, I don't know. I think we give these young girls this help. And it was help, right? This YMCA, these flats, and this is a charity, the YMCA, and usually the local authorities pay for that accommodation for them, and this about 2 years you're in there for this mother and baby, training sort of thing for finances, how to cook, how to look after your child, all this sort of stuff. You have courses with them. YMCA actually are very, very good at what they do. I'm surprised in this case. But again, this girl didn't care, did she? Her belief that she could do what she wanted when she wanted stemmed from a very young age, when she left home at 14 and thought, sod your rules, I'm going to go and do what I'm going to do. She didn't believe in rules. She just, and she was a liar. She's walked out, she's dressed up, partying. I'll show you in the nightclub when she's partying and the DJs, happy birthday, and she's having a whale of a time. A whale of a time. This child is not in her fault at all. Really, she's just not in her fault at all. There's nothing for this child at all, as there wasn't probably anything for anyone that's ever tried to help this girl. She was probably always lied, always manipulated to get her own way, to do what she's going to do. And she wanted to go out and she wanted to be a party girl, she wanted to be a model, she wanted to be this, she wanted to be that. But really, she had the most important job at all, didn't she? She was a mother, and she couldn't even do that. So listen, I don't know what you're going to think about this case. This poor baby died in this Brighton flat, you know, in December 2019. This girl's been given 9 years for manslaughter, because the law won't allow us to prosecute her for murder because the intention wasn't there. But her sentence can be higher. It can be higher for that. She's then parted, isn't she, in Coventry, London. She's got the trains and all this sort of stuff. There's CCTV footage of her. She's lied to the police. She's lied to the ambulance people. She's lied. And the result of everything that she's done is that a child has lost its life. A child's lost its life here. And it's, I think it's one of the most saddest cases, I think, that I've ever heard. And I think the court sort of could see with her that there's no helping this girl really. But the only hope is that any other child that she ever tries to have will be removed at birth, and so it should. So I want to know your thoughts on this case, because it's, you know, it's upsetting to me when I do these cases, because I think about these children. You know, I'm thinking about this poor kid laying in this cot for 6 days and no one gives a shit about this kid. You know, what can we do really to stop this happening? What can we do? You know, we're trying everything, aren't we really? You know, but awareness is a really big thing. And a child's safety in this country and any other country is our ultimate goal, is to keep our children safe and other children safe. So if you see anything that you don't think is right with a child, or in a family home or out on the street or wherever, you should report it. It doesn't matter if you're wrong, they'll do their checks and they will leave. But if you're right, you could have saved that child's life. So please, there's some numbers that's going to go up. If you know of a child in harm or in need of assistance, or you yourself are in need of assistance, don't be afraid to ask for it. It's alright, you know, don't be ashamed to ask for help. There is help out there. And if you cannot cope with your child, even for a short time, then tell someone. Tell someone. Because you won't always lose your children straight away. You'll lose your child if they die like this, and you'll lose your child if you go to prison. But if you work with these authorities and you explain to them that you just are not coping for certain reasons, they can work a plan out with you and give you help and support to help you grow into the person that you want to be, and to help your child grow and be in the best position that that child can be in to be safe. So please, if you need help, ask for it. So thank you for watching. Until next time. Bye bye.